I was born into a multi-generational satanic cult family. My whole family were part of the cult. That includes parents, grandparents on both sides, uncles, aunts, and anybody else that was in the family. So my mother was a breeder and she had me for that purpose. So I was born into it right from the very start. My grandfather was also connected to the royal estates and worked for the elite satanic cults. So I was instantly connected in that respect. I also was born into satanic bloodline, and I was recognized from very early in for my abilities and my psychic powers. And so I think probably that's why then the elites and the royal estates and everybody involved kept me on the inside. Typical experiences that I had growing up in a satanic cult. From birth, I was being prepared in the home to endure rituals. So from sort of birth to 3 years of age, I was being raped and sexually abused by my father. I was being used for water rituals in the bath to prepare me for the bigger rituals that I went into from 3 years of age. My mother was, or had already begun that process, the process of trauma bonding, and she continued that also once I was released into the cult. So that was the beginning experiences. And then from 3 years of age, both of my parents then sold me into the local satanic paedophile rings, the satanic cults that operated within London that were more lower levels. And a typical experience there is that my parents would take me to houses where they were having rituals, and my father would be paid to let them use me. So my mother would take me into the rooms wherever they wanted me and strip me naked and then leave me there. And I would be used in satanic rituals. My mother would come in and collect me afterwards and wipe me down and take me home, and my father would collect money. So that was on the smaller scale of the satanic cults, just the local families. And other typical experiences would be that I was used for in satanic rituals for the elites and royalty and politicians. So within those situations, I would experience torture, rape. I would witness murders of babies and children. I would witness babies and children being cut open for their blood and for their meat, and I was made to eat the organs of what came out of them. Um, that was a very typical ritual scenario. Um, Water rituals, torture in dungeons, mind control torture at the Tavistock. Um, all of that was very typical in my life as in a satanic cult. These things happened in London, very much in our Westminster Parliament, Buckingham Palace. And then outside of London, it would be like the royal estates, Windsor Castle, the Tavistock in London, which was for mind control programming, and a military base I used to be taken to before I was being taken out on the jobs that I used to have to do. I was trained in the Tavistock there as a super soldier, assassin. I was trafficked throughout Europe to different castles, and again country estates. So yeah, they did try to traffic me to the US, but the Queen wouldn't allow it, because I was of their bloodline, so had to stay. I think just in general rituals in satanic cults, the perpetrators get the children to comply purely through fear and terror and blackmail, as in it's either their life or another child's life. So it's like trading all the time. If you don't do that, that will happen to you. So there's a lot of control, and through torture, their children are made to comply. Through the mind control program, they have full compliance from a child because they split off the child's brain to create alters, or other parts, as I prefer to call them. I don't like the word alter. So the other parts are then controlled by the perpetrators, by the handlers. Once they've done this splitting off and they have control of those parts, compliance is very simple. They just have to say the name or a word that will trigger that part to come forward, and they have full control. Yeah, and of course that's a very difficult question because there were thousands of scenarios to choose from. I thought about this, and for me, it was the day I was on a farm that my grandfather ran for the elites. It's a farm that is owned by the Crown, so it's royal estate. I was taken there often. It's a very regular place that I was taken to. I had a sister that was kept on that farm continuously. So she was raised feral on the farm, but used as a filler inner, if you like, on in rituals, and she was just treated worse than an animal. But every time I was held captive on the farm, we always found each other and would find time, a way to have some time together. If I was held captive in chains, because there was a barn that I would be put into and chained up to, like the leading up to rituals, where I would be left there for days in preparation. And my sister Catherine, she used to come and find me and bring me bits of water or bits of food, and she would literally risk her own life in doing that. And then if there were times when they had all gone away and left us in underground cells or whatever, we would just be together in every single moment. And Catherine was my reason for living another day. And every time I went to the farm, I used to fill my mind with just happiness that I would see her. And we just used to cling together all the time, every moment. And this one day, my grandfather came along, and Catherine was ill. I could tell that she was a lot weaker this day. And he ripped her out of my arms. I think I was about 6 or 7 years of age, and Catherine would have been about 9. And I screamed and actually made noise. And it was the first time I'd ever made noise or dared to show anything. And my grandfather looked at me as if to say, no, don't do that, because the consequences are going to be terrible. And I didn't care, and I just screamed and screamed, no, 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 not Catherine, not Catherine. And he said, she's no use to me anymore because she's ill. and he just pulled her off by one arm and dragged her along the ground. And we made eye contact. Catherine looked back at me, and I looked in her eyes, and she looked in mine, and she was just telling me that it's okay, and she wants to go. She wants it to be over, and she was sorry for me leaving me behind. And I spoke to her in a way of saying, it's okay, you know, I understand and I love you, because we spoke through our eyes, because we were never allowed to make any sound. So we could have this conversation while Catherine was being dragged away. And then my grandfather took her into the forest, which was just on the edge of the farm. So I lost vision of her when he took her into the trees, but then I could hear her, I could hear him hitting her over the head with the shovel that he had, and he killed her within earshot. I could hear him killing her, and then I was still screaming, but I couldn't hear the sound. It felt like my world had just fallen away and like gone, and I was just in this abyss. And he came back over, my grandfather, and started kicking me on the ground, and just kept saying, you know, shut up. So I must have like been still screaming, and yeah, he just kicked me and kicked me and kicked me till I went silent. And I don't really remember anything else after that. Maybe I passed out, but that has been the hardest thing for me to go through. And still now, it breaks my heart every day. So as much as there was so many horrific experiences, that one hurts me the most. Yes, my personal message is that all survivors need an opportunity to break their silence. Silence is the Satanists and the perpetrators' greatest weapon. They count on our silence. They depended on our silence because exposure is their greatest fear. So we have to do everything we can to speak out. And people like the people that are helping us to speak out is what everybody needs to be doing, because for as long as there are still survivors that are too scared to speak and are still trapped in fear, the children on this planet will never be safe and never be free. I always imagine if every single survivor and victim of any of this abuse, ritual abuse, satanic ritual abuse, you know, the rape, the torture, the mind control, everything that we've all endured, if every single victim and survivor spoke out and broke their silence, they would have nowhere left to go. It would be over for them. It is only the secrecy and the silence that enables them to carry on. When this happens, because I believe it will, the light that will come from that will destroy every ounce of their darkness. And they will no longer be able to harm any children left on this earth. So that's my message. That is my wish for humanity, for every baby and every child, that whatever it takes, whether you're a survivor or a supporter of survivors or somebody that can help in any other way, help survivors speak out and help survivors break their silence. and find the courage to heal in any way, shape, or form that you can, because it is truly worth it. And for every voice that is heard, another child is saved. And we owe it to all our children, not just our own. We are all responsible for every child on this planet. So we must unite and allow our light to become stronger and stronger, so their darkness can no longer exist.